Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michelle. Welcome back to my channel. If it is your first time, welcome. I hope you can make this your home. If not, I pray that you leave here edified. Today, I want to continue on our series, Removing the Mask. I'm actually going to make a commitment, you guys. I'm going to do this twice a week on Monday and Thursdays. I really need to structure things and be committed. So, yeah, I want to talk about letting go today. I want to talk about letting go, meaning, um, okay, so I will title this one, Let Go and Let God. Remember, this series is based on my book, Removing the Mask, which was published in 2016 and will soon be available on Amazon Kindle. So this book is basically about my journey of marrying for the wrong reasons, marrying a counterfeit, losing myself, fighting the battle within, the process of divorce, forgiveness, healing, letting go, restoration, and finding myself again in God. So, the reason I want to talk about letting go today is because most people have been conditioned to hold on to situations that don't serve them or situations that kill who they are because of reasons like what society says, the society, the standards that society sets. Number two, what are people going to say? Number three, fear of the unknown. Number four, being cast out, either cast out of church or cast out by your peers or groups. The fear of being cast out. And then number five, the religious views. For example, the one that I do not really like, God hates divorce. And when I say this statement alone is a religious view, it is a religious view to people who hold on to the law with no understanding of what grace is. I'm going to go deeper into that. So I just want to share the knowledge that I have received from Holy Spirit and hopefully help you make sound decisions about your next move or what God wants you to do or be able to move where He wants you to move or being released from being stuck. That's what I wanted to say. So please note, if you are currently married and somehow you've been trying to get out of that marriage, this is not a license to do it. A marriage is a serious commitment. In fact, it is a covenant done before God. And the vows you took, He takes seriously because God is part of that covenant. However, in some instances, God allows grace to play out, not because you feel tired of your spouse and now you just want to get a new one. No, grace applies when God's standards are not met and God's vision is not met and His direction and leading is not part of that agreement anymore. And we need to understand that there are terms and conditions when you're getting into such a covenant. And each party has to hold up their end of the deal. If not, and only for valid reasons, can this be reviewed. Example, in Matthew chapter 5, verse 32, Jesus says, "But I tell you that anyone who divorces his wife except for sexual immorality makes her the victim of adultery. And then it continues on. I just want you to underline except for sexual immorality. So in this scripture, Jesus is answering a question that Pharisees raised about marrying again after divorce and why Jesus says divorce is acceptable in this case. He specifically tells them that Moses allowed it because they had hard hearts and that were refusing to be obedient to the word or obedient to the law. He then goes to explain why divorce is acceptable if the bed is defiled. Meaning, if one partner cheats or sleeps with another person other than their spouse, then they are no longer one. The spouse and the partner are no longer one, but two, because they are now divided. They will no longer flow the same way or have an understanding of each other because the other party has created a soul tie that will bring its own desires or ideas into now this marriage that was supposed to be one. This is why the Bible tells us that God is a jealous God because it is impossible to please two different ideas. It is impossible to please God and Satan at the same time. It is impossible to please two people at the same time. This is why light cannot be together with darkness. It's either one or the other. And why you have to be equally yoked to your spouse. Amos 3, chapter 3, verse 3 says, two cannot walk together unless they agree. Because in order to serve God, you cannot have the love for money. So you cannot walk with someone that you have no agreement with. You cannot walk with someone that you have no you don't have the same ideas and the same outlook on life or the same principles or the same the same vision, because if you are walking, whether it is friendship or relationships or whatever, if you're working with someone, you are bound to be that someone, because trust you me, a bad potato will corrupt the whole bag. You cannot walk with someone who is not aligned to where you're going. And when God says you cannot serve God and love money, because you're going to hate the one and love the other, this doesn't mean in any ways you must be poor. No, this actually means if your motive in life is to make money, then you will do anything that concerns it. But if your motive is God, He will be able to lead you to a life that doesn't require you to obey money or serve money. He will give you ideas and plans that will help you creating a sustainable living that doesn't require you to depend on money, so that you can be fully alive or happy. If your whole mood changes because of frustration that have to do with money, then you don't have a good relationship with money. Money should not be a dictator of who you are or how you feel or how you live. You should be able to be a human being with or without money. Okay, back to the point. Grace is not a license to sin or get out of covenants or your get out of jail free card. Most of the time, when you unknowingly get into covenants, that means before Christ in your life, before Christ helps you or before you have knowledge of who Christ is, then once he is in your life, he helps you navigate through whatever commitment or covenant that you entered into without his knowledge. Now, let's talk about letting go. Letting go is a form of surrender. What is surrender? Surrender is to give up or hand over your rights or possession on compulsion or demand. It is submission of power to a powerful influence or source. It is to yield so that the other person can take lead. Basically, it is giving up and throwing out everything you have been doing and any attachment to specific beliefs and desired outcomes. You let go of your preconceived ideas about how things should be, and you rest in the wisdom of God. So, if we are talking about surrender, we have to talk about trust. Trust is a firm belief in the reliability and truth or ability of another. It is a feeling of confidence and security that a partner cares and will meet the required needs. So, when you get into trust, you get into a partnership that you actually believe that this person will carry out the desired outcome of what you're trusting them with. Therefore, letting go has to do with letting go of control. And control has to do with the ego. Ego now is the sense of personal identity. It has to do with self-importance, self-image, and self-esteem. It is how you as an individual think, feel, your will, and how you distinguish yourself from others. An example of this would be if you think you're the smartest person in the room, or how because you are educated and highly esteemed, you demand a title before your name, such as you want people to refer or call you as prophet so and so or prophetess so and so. And maybe another example, maybe in a home setting, you introduce yourself as Dr. so and so. It is basically that high horse you climb before addressing others, because it is okay to address yourself as a doctor when you are at your practice, because people need to know who they're talking to. Then you can address yourself as a doctor. Or if you're at school and you're a professor, your students can address you as a professor, or your colleagues or whatever. That is the setting for it. If you are at a church and you are holding that position, you can be addressed as prophet or prophetess or whatever. But to demand everyone to address you by that specific title, then that has ego in it, because you're simply saying, look at me because I am this high up. So ego almost always is accompanied by control. And control is the power to influence or direct people's behaviors or direct the course of events. A simple example be, I'm your mother, so do as I say. And this, guys, God called me out on it. Because you are simply using your power of authority to dictate to your child because you see yourself as important than the child or as superior than the child because they live in your house and they have to abide by your rules according to you. Another example would be I want a spouse who is 6 feet tall, brown eyes, masculine, earns more than 300K a year. Because now you view these factors as security and standards. But guess what? They can lose that job right after you get married. What are you gonna do then? Or this 6'5" spouse that you want, they could get into an accident and lose their long legs and be confined to a wheelchair, God forbid. Then what? If you are basing your standards on the physical appearance alone, then that is egotistical. That's not how that's not how God standards are. That is not God's standards. And I had to personally let go of a lot of ideas I had in my, for me, for a spouse. I had my own ideas. I had to let go of looking for a good looking man. And my reasoning behind it was to make sure I had cute babies. Yeah, I had to do the work in myself first because I wanted even a specific hair type. And because was because I wasn't happy with my own hair type. My hair is very nappy and naturally a blend of brown, almost reddish color. And I always hated the fact that it looks dirty because it has two colors. Naturally has two colors. I don't know how that happens, but I have naturally two colors. So I normally now color my hair one color so that it's not a blend of two. Yeah, so I went for a guy who was mixed race and naturally had curly hair. So yeah, my son has beautiful thick hair because of this. However, I didn't think of the other traits he genetically received as well, along with generational curses that follow. This is why we need to surrender to God because He is our creator and knows us best. This is why we learn to trust Him by letting the ego go. Alternately, letting go of the control so that we are able to receive guidance concerning our lives and don't have to spend time fighting generational curses and genetics that we cannot help because they receive things that you had no knowledge of. The genes that they carry are certain genes that they struggle with or give them problems or whatever. So when you allow God to direct each and everything that you do, you will not end up with all of these problems that you have to be dealing with. And if this following statement hurts your feelings, it is only because you are operating from ego. So check yourself, okay? One of the reasons you cannot or are not able to hear from God is because of your ego. You are refusing to let control go because you somehow think it is a sign of weakness. Newsflash, if you cannot surrender or submit to God, you are not ready for marriage because marriage in its entirety is about surrender. If you don't hear God's voice, how will you be able to hear your spouse? Guess what? Parents, surrender applies to you too. Your children are also individuals with a purpose, and your job is to be their guide, not a dictator. And it is important to have a relationship of submission with them in a form of if you're telling your children to clean their room and they ask you why, your response should not be because I said so. Your response, I will be the first to admit I have been using that system, but your response should be educational. So, this is what you say instead. It is important to clean your room so that you will be able to put your things where you will find them. Also, because it protects you from getting illnesses from germs or having pests as roommates. And clean spaces create good atmosphere for creativity and clarity. I actually saw a post on Facebook the other day where a mom of a 6-year-old girl came home to a very frustrated little girl, and every time the mom was trying to have a conversation with her, the little girl would snap at her mom. So the mom finally asked her what was wrong and told her that she can see that she is not her usual self, meaning she was acknowledging the child, and she would like to know how she can assist her to get to her best self, meaning she was giving compliment and validation at the same time. The daughter admitted that her brain was telling her to just be mean, and she doesn't know why either. So the mom, in an attempt to help her daughter, she she wanted her to identify or separate who she is from who she's not by reminding her daughter of who her real self is, and taught her a new way of identifying thoughts that are not of hers in order to resist the invader. She was basically teaching her daughter to resist the devil and renew the mind at the same time. If we are able to do this and teach our children in the way they should go so they would not depart from it at a young age, we will be able to do the world a greater good, because we would be ridding them of depression, suicidal thoughts, mental illnesses, all of those things that come with it. But first, we have to unlearn the damage caused by our past hurts. We do that by surrendering to God's ideas of what is best for us. How do we do this? Number one, throw out everything you have been doing in your own power. This doesn't mean we surrender to our situation, but we are simply saying, I'm allowing help to come in any form that God gives me. Number two, you recognize the fear, the uncertainty, the anxiety that is causing you to want to get control, and feel it, acknowledge it, and feel the energy that it brings with it. Then take a deep breath and release it. Then relax. Then surrender to it, whatever that energy is, by consciously saying, God sees all and is in all. Father, I surrender this to you. Then make a conscious effort to let go of that thing and do other things you are able to manage and move on. Number three, focus on the effort and not the outcome. That means you do what you can with the situation. And if you keep hitting a brick wall, you then ask God to take over. And his response will either come in a form of another plan to execute what you were trying to do, or block you from every angle, because God doesn't want you to do whatever that thing you were doing is in the first place, or it is not time for you to do whatever that thing is. Therefore, you then at that moment choose purpose over passion. Choosing purpose is aligning with God's will for your life than passion. You don't do it because I'm passionate about it, so I'll do it anyway. Is it what God wants you to do at this time? That should be your drive, your motive. So number 4, you kill your pride before you lose your head. Pride comes before the fall. So stop telling yourself these stories of how important it is to achieve the specific status or a thing. I'm not saying don't have direction or a vision or goals for your life. No, I'm saying remove the reasons behind your achievements. Reasons like I want to beat everybody else. I want to beat the rest, or I want to become well known, or I want to become rich. If that is your motivation, then you have a wrong reason. Reasons like you want to improve other people's lives, or you want to provide for your family, or you want to get out of poverty. Those are reasons that are aligning to God's will for your life. Those are reasonable and they are edifying and will not cause you to stumble. Those 3 factors are the things that God will always help you find. Anything that is reasonable, edifying, and not cause you to stumble, God will support. Number 5, embrace trust by reaching out for support and doing what God commissions you to do, even if it is out of your comfort zone. And do it even if it sounds foolish to you. An example, you're coming out of a grocery stores and you have nothing in your pocket, no money in your pocket, and you just bought yourself a slice of cheesecake. I love me some cheesecake, so yeah. And God suddenly says to you, do you see that lady sitting over at the bench over there? Go give her that cheesecake. And you know very well you cannot afford to buy another cheesecake. You just spend your last money on that cheesecake, but God is commissioning you to give up your cheesecake for another person. And as soon, if you are obedient, you go over, you're like, oh my goodness, I really wanted this cheesecake. And you go over anyway and give this person this cheesecake and like greet. Obviously, don't be weird about it. You first greet, hello, how are you? Fine, thank you. Okay, I just wanted to give you this cheesecake as a gift. And then this person looks at you and suddenly bursts out in tears and cries, only to find out that lady had just been laid off from work and she had 2 options because she felt like she had nothing to live for anymore. So she either was going to kill herself or God had to show up. So by you obeying God at that moment and giving her that cheesecake was a confirmation for her. And specifically a cheesecake, maybe that is how she understood love, because maybe her grandmother used to bake cheesecake for her grandmother who passed away, and this is the same grandmother who taught her about God. That is how she knew of God, through her grandmother who used to bake cheesecake for her. So God is communicating with her through that cheesecake at that moment. And you did not understand what you just did. You just saved someone's life. You just became obedient, and you just gained, you just expressed your love to God in a love language that God asked you to. Because as much as we think in our own minds that love languages is something that has to do with just human beings, no, God uses love languages as well. Let me go through the love languages. We have words of affirmation. When you praise and worship you and giving him praise, you are talking to God. You are giving him words of affirmation. He wants that too. just as much as you want him to speak back to you and give you words of affirmation. That's how he does it with you through prophets, when he gives you those words. So this is a relationship, people. You having a relationship with God you need to know how you talk with God, what your love language is. And most of the time, God will use your love language to express himself to you. And another love language, acts of service. When he asks you to do random acts of kindness, like the example I just gave about giving your last cheesecake or your only cheesecake or your last money in your pocket to someone who needs it more, or maybe he's asking you to minister to someone who you just met in a bus. That is acts of service. He just asks you, he just lays this in your heart. You're sitting in a bus, you're sitting next to a person, you really don't want to talk to anyone, but he then commissions you at that moment, please talk to this person, only to find this person needed God, needed a sign, and you are that sign at that time. And you, through ministering, you are leading this person to Christ, and this person is going to become a huge evangelist one day. And you have not only saved one person, but you have saved each and every other person this one person is going to touch. So your acts of service, don't take them lightly. When God says, go do that YouTube channel, you are doing acts of service by ministering through YouTube, or by ministering through Instagram or whatever, or in your village or in your state or in your city, in your town, or young girls in your area. Whatever that God commissions you to do, that is your act of service towards him. And trust you me, he's gonna return the favor. The house that you want, that you cannot afford, guess what? He's gonna make ways for you to get that house you dream of. He's gonna make ways for you to get that car you dream of. He's gonna make ways for you for your debt to be written off, because you are in a relationship. You do for him, he will do for you. It's not an exchange program. Don't look at it like that. When you love someone, you want to give to them. And when you give to that someone you love, they are compelled to give, because they can see that you do it out of love. Love compels you to do it. And then receiving of gifts. Those when you do your offerings. It could be when you do an offering at church, or when maybe you are at church and you see, oh, my pastor actually does not have many outfits, and I can afford to buy him a pair of shoes or a suit or whatever. Let me do that. Or you saw that a window was broken and there's not enough money to fix that window, and you are able to do it. You fix the window. That is gifts that you're giving to God, because those things are concerning God. When you offer a seed in monetary form, maybe to someone who gave you a word, you are not buying that word from that person. You are not making them rich. When you are deciding to give an offering to that person, you are simply saying, Lord, thank you for gifting me with this person who is able to teach me and guide me in a way that leads to you. Be careful now. Giving to people that leads to God, not just people. And sometimes you can give to, like, if you are in the middle of the street and you notice a homeless person, you can see it is very cold, and you have a pair of shoes and a jacket at home, and they are wearing nothing. Give them your shoes if it fits, and a jacket if it fits, or buy them some if you afford to. So you are able to do those things because you are giving to God. Your offerings, your giving, you are not doing specifically to the person. You are doing whatever kindness you are showing to a person, you are doing it to God. You are showing kindness to God. Quality time. when you spend time in the Word and just read His Word and want to know more about His Word, like maybe a certain scripture jumps at you and you want to learn more about it. I'm not saying like you just read a chapter without understanding. No, when you intentionally spend time in His Word, you intentionally ask Him, Lord, what was going on in here? Like, what is the context of this? How am I supposed to apply this verse in my life? That is your quality time, and your prayer is quality time that you're spending with God. Your prayer is your way of saying, listen, I want to know from you. It's not only about asking things from Him. Sometimes prayer is just like, you know what? I just want to let you know that I appreciate you. I want to let you know that I love you. And I love how you love me. I love how you make me feel. I love how I feel after I speak to you, Holy Spirit. I love how you make me feel. I love the story of your sacrifice on the cross, Jesus, because that shows me how much you love me. That was your act of service towards me. And how can I make this for you as well? I love how you overlooked your pain, God, by giving us your son. Even though you loved him, you gave him as a sacrifice. You overlooked your pain. You turned your eyes, even though it tore you apart. But you did it because that was your act of service to me, to show me how much you love me. So let me know how I can show you. Teach me how to love you, God. Teach me how to show you these things. And physical touch. Yes, we cannot touch God, but we can give Him those acts of service by allowing our bodies to be a temple. Being a temple means you are allowing God to use you however He sees fit. And at times, another way, another form of physical touch is by fasting. Like you are denying your body for Him. You are basically denying food and you just want to be in His presence. There's something about not eating that makes the spirit more alive in you. Like you get this sensations, and um you get this feel. Oh my goodness, it's like ecstasy. It's like this intimate feel. It's like intimacy when you're intimate with your partner. You get this high from it. You get this all of how the touch makes you feel. It is exactly how God makes you feel when you allow Him to use your body, or allow Him to allow the Spirit to move through you when you deny yourself food for the day, or deny yourself certain things so that He can manifest in your life. So love languages are also a way to express how to speak to God, or how God speaks to you. And be sure with love languages, you become intentional. Identify what your love language is, and trust you me, God will use what you identify with. And finally, number 6, rest. This doesn't mean go to sleep. This means when the storm is raging and Jesus is sleeping, you don't wake Him up. You find a pillow and sleep next to Him. Yes. This is so difficult to do because when you get an eviction notice, you panic, especially if nothing has happened yet and you are left in your last hour and you're supposed to be out by 3 o'clock and it's 2 p.m. and you have heard nothing from God. And even though you have prayed, but nothing is happening, in this case, you should Pray with meaning. When you pray, you say things like, God, I like this house. I want to live here, but I cannot afford it anymore. What should I do? Or, Lord, I do like living here. However, if it is not your plan for me and you have something better for me that is affordable and sustainable, lead me to it. Prayer is basically communication between you and God. Just like any marriage or partnership, these are conversations that have to be had. And you find resolutions together based on where you are going and if it is aligned to God's vision for your life. An example, you live in Gauteng. I'm going to make an example with South Africa. You live in Gauteng province and you work in Midrand, in the town of Midrand, but you live in Sandton. These two places are both in Gauteng. And then you get evicted because you cannot afford to live in Sandton. Sandton is an expensive, beautiful place in Gauteng, and you get evicted because you cannot afford to live there. Guess what? God will not fight it because He is teaching you to live within your means and be responsible with your money. So He then shows you an apartment that is better in terms of it's closer to work, it's in your area of work, it is affordable, it is a safe area, and you will be able to save money to do other things. If you are very in tune to God's voice, you will listen to His advice and opinions because sometimes He is saving you from future disasters. I learned this the hard way and lost my furniture to a flood because I was being a hothead about moving to a further place that was not convenient to me, according to me. So, listen to God. And I just wanna read a chapter that is based on what I'm talking about letting go. Just to give you guys an idea of what I had to let go and the why I had to let go of him and the idea of what I thought was love. Okay, I'm gonna read from page 24. The title of this chapter is The Battlefield. I'm gonna read from page 26. I loved him and did not want to give him up. I kept on forgiving him and taking him back. It was as if I became so blind that I actually loved this person more than I loved myself. More than anything, I had this sense of need for him. He cheated so many times I lost count. There was even a time when I was 6 months pregnant. After I found him cheating again, I got so sick that fluid came out. At first, I thought it was urine. Then I realized it was a thick fluid. I had to rush to hospital, and the doctor could not find the heartbeat of my baby. There were the water that sustained the child was completely gone, and they wanted to do an emergency cesarean because I was losing my child. Okay, I'm only going to read that part. The reason is, thank God I didn't lose my child, first of all. But I want you to understand, because of my past hurt and what I had been exposed to, my idea of love and relationship was misconstrued. And I thought love meant hanging on to that person, no matter if it costs you your life or others that you love. And in my case, I almost lost my child because I stayed in a relationship that was killing every part of who I was. And it instilled fear and anxiety in me because I gave him my power. Then he took it and took my voice. I exposed myself and showed him who I was and gave him a heart, and he used it to capitalize. By the time I left that relationship, I couldn't recognize myself. I wanted to hide out of fear and anxiety. I didn't want to write or speak up because I didn't have an opinion anymore. So I kept to myself. I was afraid of being ridiculed or judged. And because he isolated me, I didn't have any desire to make new friends. I didn't even have a desire to go out for coffee or an outing with my own family because I couldn't relate to them. I had isolated myself from them as well. There was a lot of damage that came out of being unequally yoked in that marriage. This is why we have to allow God to lead us into godly marriages, because one of the things that my ex would do, he would even convince me that the voice of God I heard so clearly was a lie. He made me doubt who God was just to protect himself. What I mean is, what would happen? Because I'm a prophet, God shows me things, and he would actually show me a specific incident, maybe show me my husband either being in relations with this woman, specific woman, who would show me details of what the woman looks like, what they are wearing, and what they were doing, maybe if they were walking, holding hands in a specific area or whatever. Like, God would give me specific images. I would either dream this or I would see this in a vision. And when I would confront him about it, he would call me a liar, and I would tell him that this is what God revealed to me. And he would call me a liar, like there's no such a thing. And it made me doubt God's voice. And it made me doubt what I was hearing. So I had stopped trusting God's voice, and I depended on church leaders to lead me. And that can also be dangerous because the leader is human too and can be led astray too. Or let me not say can be led astray too, but he can. Or they can give you advice based on their perception of what is good or right. And some other leaders might give you advice based on a religious mindset. So you need to be careful. This is why it is important to hear the voice of God for yourself. So what am I saying? Letting go and letting God means you are learning how to let someone who knows everything navigate the way while trusting the process and the driver. The nice thing about having Jesus as the driver is that you can ask questions for clarity. But questioning his driving skills or his leadership is you having disbelief or anxiety or fear or doubt. That, my friend, is an insult. Insult to his ability, insult to who he is, because he is truth. If you doubt him or don't believe him, you are basically calling him a liar. And he is truth in its fullness. So when you are in doubt, check yourself before you impose it on him. He has a track record. It's called the Bible, people. Check it. I'm going to end it here for today. I hope this helps you. Until next time, to God be the glory.